Welcome, affiliated listeners, to another special and amazing episode of the Affiliated Podcast. I know I say special and amazing every single time, but it's because I have a low vocabulary, so I guess I'm just going to use the superlatives that I enjoy. Hooray! So, but today is actually one that's really, really exciting. Really, really happy to be joined by two people. First, we have the immaculate, the astute, what's another term that I could come up with? The salacious Thomas McMahon. How are you doing, man?
I do. God, I never know if you're going to go to the gastronomy with those intros. So. I don't think
but I love making your face do all sorts of weird motions before we get to introductions. So, and today we are going, who we have is we're joined by another fantastic human. And from our neighbor of the North, we have Mitch Ormond. And you might think, Mitch Ormond, that sounds like Orville Redenbacher knockoff popcorn. But no, Mitch is actually a very smart marketer, advertiser, and doing something. I'm going to tease a little bit in a second. But first, we're going to have a great conversation because he has some really, really cool stuff around something you probably don't like doing in your business. So with that, Mitch, how are you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing good. So it's bright and sunny here, and I can't wait to start working outside after this podcast. So sweating on my laptop. So what we're going to be talking about with Mitch today. So Mitch works with LogiCall, and they are a contract customer support center with phone, email, text, all the support you need. But more importantly, oftentimes we look at customer support as a cost center. It's something that takes, but we need to have what Mitch is going to talk about today is how your customer support shouldn't be a cost center, but should become a profit center if you're doing it right, which I love, especially since I got my start in like just working in general and doing call center support for a long time and management for 6 years. So definitely understand that world. And when I hear call center, cost center is what we always think of. When I hear people talking about profit, I get excited. And what Mitch is going to talk to us today is going to be really exciting. So before we jump into all that exciting stuff, can you just give a little bit of a background, Mitch, of how you found yourself into the robust, exciting world of taking inbound phone calls and not killing yourself? So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I started out in the industry in 2012 as an advertiser. Did that for, 5-6 years. We did some good numbers. And, during that time we outsourced our customer service to numerous different call centers. We just weren't finding what we needed out there in the market. We always had, a lot of issues on the front lines with the customer service, whether it was, if they were causing chargebacks or excess refunds or, just a lot of stuff was falling through the cracks. We tried, 3 or 4 different of the larger centers out there. And then, we decided, hey, you know what? We're up here in Canada. Let's bring a few agents in-house. It's the Canadian dollar. It's probably a penny to one for comparing it to the US. But so we brought the agents in-house, and then we just, started doing it in-house. And then eventually I just kind of, felt it was more of my calling than on the advertiser side. I had a few other friends that were advertisers as well. They were having the same problems I was. I told them what I've done. And then they just basically asked, hey, can you start taking my calls? So that's kind of how it all started. So I was kind of an advertiser call center guy for a year or two. And then eventually I just told my partners at the time that, hey, you know what, I think I'm just going to roll with this. A few more clients came in and, been full-time call center, 100% dedicated for the last 5 years. So
that's awesome.
5-6 years. So it's been, a bit of a natural progression for me, I guess. My old partners are still advertisers, still going strong. And, it's pretty much how it came to be.
That's awesome. Well, I love that you have the advertiser background. So I think oftentimes you might see people that run call centers, but they don't really understand what their clients are doing and what those goals are. And you understand that intimately as you were one of them. So one quick question before we jump into the main question, because it stuck out to me. I thought it really interesting. You said you felt like this was more of your calling. So I'm just curious. I know this is going to sound all like wooey, but what about customer service started to feel like home and felt like this is where I'm meant to be? Because you've obviously seen quite a bit of success since you transitioned into that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because my cousin, he's has a marketing agency and whatnot, and I would always go to his office and work out of his office. And this one time, for a few weeks straight, I found myself on his couch in his office, just planted there with my laptop, taking customer service calls. So basically, we're kind of new to the advertising game at that time. And, we got a few sales here and there. Then all of a sudden it just took off and we didn't actually have any customer support at the time. So I was there taking the calls myself on the phone. But it was a good practice because there's actually a lot of things that I've learned from doing that myself personally that, we use in our scripts today that work like a charm. So, it's literally learned it from the bottom up that way. And it just kind of felt like, the way things were rolling along with it, that, what, it's going to be too hard for me to do both. I got to choose one. And this is, I chose to kind of pursue the vendor path rather than the advertiser path at that time.
Yeah. Oh, it seems like it's working out. So that's awesome. Well,
yeah.
Well, let's jump into it then. So kind of the main question, right? Like, how do you take, customer support from a cost center to a profit center? I think one of the first questions to get that going is like, why is customer service so important yet oftentimes de-emphasized? Because you mentioned yourself, you guys started scaling up and you're like, oh crap, we need to do this. And, that might've been the last thing on your mind is, I guess we have to have some sort of customer support. So kind of walk us through what you commonly see with the people that you work with.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, we've had clients come in where they think everything's fine and they've just been doing things through emails and what have you. But, I think the experience has kind of shown me that today phone support's very much underestimated. When it's done properly, it could actually be a good revenue driver and a good, retention piece to your business. It goes obviously starting with kind of lowering the refunds. I mean, it's really easy for people to walk away from, an email and just say, no, I don't want it kind of thing. Get out of here. It's a little different when you're on the phone, when you're person to person with that person. You can, kind of build a little bit more value in the product that they've purchased and just kind of, get them to hang around a little bit longer. Have them pay attention to the discounts you're offering them or whatever the strategy may be. So you kind of plug a few holes that way where, customers that would normally just kind of leave and get their full refund and take off, we would be able to talk them through it and get them to kind of hang around a bit longer, try the product for a bit longer, and try and keep some of that money inside or with the advertiser rather than just being like a full refund or what have you. And then on top of that too, like it builds a lot of, trust with your customers, which again can turn into, additional sales. We do a lot of, upselling and things like that on a lot of the calls that come in. Somebody will call in with a few questions. They're not sure if they want to buy it or not. And just having that person-to-person contact builds that trust. Again, we can build the value in whichever product it is and just create that confidence with the buyer that, they've landed in a good spot. They're going to be taken care of. And we help to, basically get those orders through for clients that way.
That makes a lot of sense. When you're looking at new business coming in the door to you, people using your services, what are some of the big issues that you see with their phone support team, or maybe just they don't have one, but what are some of the big issues they have with their customer support as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. We've seen kind of the whole lot of it, right? There's clients that come in with, okay customer service and they're doing okay, but to Kyle's point in the beginning, they're kind of more of a cost than a revenue generator, or, they're not really paying for themselves in a way. And then you have, other clients that come in and they've had customer service and everything's a mess. Like, the customer service is essentially on the front lines of the business. We're the first to hear anything. If there's any major issues or anything like that may be important to the advertiser, we're the first to hear about it. So I guess to answer your question, what I see is like a lot of call centers out there kind of position themselves as just like your typical vendor, an invoice you pay every week, where it's very important in this industry. I find if you want to be a good call center, it's very important to position yourself as like a true partner and an asset and, bring value to the client. That's really what it's all about. And a good call center will pay for itself. I mean, whether it's through saves, retention and, additional upsell sales, things like that. We only feel good about the job we're doing is if we're actually bringing good value to our clients and we're getting that feedback from them. So it's, pretty much in a nutshell, that's.
Yeah. When you run into the clients or the people out on the street that are going like, oh, like my customer service is good enough, like I'm just gonna focus on getting more sales. Like, why should they be thinking about actually retaining more of those sales versus just getting more in the door?
Yeah, because first of all, you've already paid for these sales in some way or another. I mean, if traffic's not cheap these days, no matter where you go, the DSPs are costing more, the Facebook's definitely gone up a lot. Affiliates, it's very competitive out there. So I guess the answer to that would basically be like, it's kind of, you've already bought and paid for that customer. Let's do our best to keep them your customer and to keep that money with you as the advertiser, because you've already actually paid for that sale. There's nothing worse. I've seen some other campaigns come in where, it's been an issue in terms of like their funnel or something. They get a lot of people that are, calling in later to refund, or they have a shipping issue and, they've spent all this money on traffic, and before you know it, they're underwater. It's super important to, kind of keep that trust with the customers and keep that revenue inside the advertiser's pocket, opposed to, just refunding it, because it's not a cheap game out there these days. I think everybody can attest to that. I mean,
yeah, no, I'm far from a math numbers person, but when I start looking at the numbers and the math, it gets noticeable how much of impact when you start saving sales and retaining sales and even upselling, right? These as a conversion boost, what happens, right? Because if you're running at, let's say 1.1 ROAS or something, and you're barely profitable on your ad spend,
totally.
and if you have a 10% refund rate, you're really break even or maybe negative on that acquisition.
Yeah.
So you're relying everything on the front end or on the, future upsells or cross sells to be profitable and things like that.
Totally.
If you can now take that 10% refund to a 5% refund, right? You're maintaining profitability with your ad spend, and you can it's a conversion boost at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And at least, keeping even or above is always the goal, right? I mean, you don't want to go negative. And yeah, that's exactly kind of what we see a lot of, is when people aren't using customer service, or they're just using emails, they're not using the phone support aspect of it. The refunds are typically twice as high as what they would be as if they were using phone support.
So if I'm just responding to email tickets and things like that,
if you're getting 10% on that,
mm-hmm.
If you incorporated phone support into that with good agents and a good call center, you should see that come down to about 5-6%.
That's significant. Yeah.
6%.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's nothing to shake a stick at, kind of, as they say.
No, I know. I think our clients' average refund rate across supplements, for example, I want to say it hovers around, it's like 10%ish. It's like 8 to 12%, depending on the client. They're kind of in that ballpark.
Totally.
And I don't think, I know some of them do phone, but I know a lot of them don't. They're kind of just responding to tickets as they pop up as like try to plug that hole versus enhance it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And, sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I was just, no, you continue on. You're good, Mitch.
Yeah, just on that note too, I mean, we've had a client come in a few months ago, and he thought nothing was, he was really nervous to move to phone support. Everything was working perfectly in his business. And he's like, I've heard good things about you guys. I'm going to try it out, but I'm really nervous. I'm not going to lie, because they do about, $40-50 million a year kind of client. And, he's like, we're just going to try it out, see how it goes. And, it's really made a difference. I had a call with him last week, and he's basically saying, like, I'm glad we went down this road, because, there's that retention aspect that we spoke about. And, it's obviously a balance too. It's the retention and the chargebacks, right? I mean, nobody wants chargebacks. So you really got to find that sweet spot, and you really need to find a call center that knows how to do that. Or yeah, exactly. And
go ahead.
Oh, and just one more thing on that too is like, that's another good plus to having a call center, is because it does create that human to human, easy to get a hold of. Issues are resolved instantly. There's no back and forth in email. It's done. Chargebacks we see do go down as well a little bit. for sure.
So I was going to say, so kind of two questions. I'll get to the second one afterwards. So you mentioned sweet spot, right? There's a sweet spot between the, upselling, retaining, and then also avoiding the chargebacks. Like, can you walk through, just elaborate on that a little bit more about how do you find that sweet spot? What, as much as you can share about what that sweet spot might be, and kind of how you guys maybe uniquely, accomplish that or find it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it really starts with a lot of like active listening and stuff on the part of the agent. If you get somebody coming in hot, sometimes it doesn't matter what you say to them. It's not going to end up well. So there's a lot of, we train our agents over here, and I'm sure other centers do as well, but just that active listening component. If you hear somebody mention the bank in any way, or they're going to call a credit card company or something like that, you're probably better off just letting that one, go, again, depending on the severity. But yeah, it's just being able to read the customer, having good agents that can read the customer, and really making sure when that customer leaves the call that they're satisfied with what happened on the call, and then they're not going to go and call their bank. And that's another component to a call center as well, is you want to make sure that those kind of things are being, looked at by management and, supervisors and stuff, making sure that, they're auditing their agents and that the agents are falling within that range of not overdoing it, not pushing too hard if it's going to end up in trouble, kind of thing.
And how frequently do you guys do that? Because I'd think that, with intense call volume, it feels like something you'd have to do pretty often. Like, how regularly are they kind of like listening in and doing that kind of coaching?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, we've got a full regimented. It's a whole it's a whole business on its own. It's why you can't really do I couldn't really do the call center and be an advertiser at the same time. It was just I kind of had to pick one or another at some point.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so a couple more questions that kind of round this. I thought you mentioned before that to have a good call center partner, it's not just a vendor that's taking calls. It should be somebody that's really partnering with you, which I can make sense and seems like that's the case. So as a part of developing that partnership, how often, how do you go about doing that? How do you make sure that it feels very seamless from, reps that are most likely taking calls for, and maybe they're not, I don't know quite how to set up, but taking calls from lots of different companies, but each time they feel like they're talking to that individual company. So I guess kind of curious how you go about creating more of a partnership versus just being somebody that's answering phone calls.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of it's, I guess the best way to say it would be, being more proactive than reactive on things. Really kind of, you're looking for a call center that is going to treat like your business, if you were an advertiser, treat it like it was their own. So, on the lookout for certain things. I mean, if there's excess amount of threats coming in, if there's a lot of customers that are calling and say, I don't know what this product is, that could be indicative of maybe suspicious traffic or fraud traffic or something like that. So, you really just a call center that has their ear to the ground, has the same, believes in the vision of the advertiser and has the same, set out on the same goals. And, to kind of calibrate all that, it's very important to, keep on the same page with things like meetings and, whatever it is, and Skype chats or what have you. But definitely, keep calibrated and constant communication on what's happening on the ground level. I run into a lot of clients too, where their call centers aren't that responsive. They sometimes wait 2 days or a day and a half for an answer, or, and it's like, you need a call center that's responsive. We all know we're in a pretty fast moving industry here. Things can happen really quickly. Just call centers really got to have their finger on the pulse and have their clients' interests, in the forefront.
Is there a level of revenue or daily sales or yearly sales, whatever it might be, that you find that this becomes hey, if you're not doing this, you really need to, versus I'm not quite big enough to really justify this yet doing, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on the sales funnel. A lot of it depends on the funnel the advertiser's using. But in my take would say, if you have 10 sales a day or more, it's always beneficial to have a call center. You just got to find one that, has the right kind of pricing model, so you're not paying for a bunch of agents sitting around doing nothing all day, right? But yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt because even if it saves that 1 or 2 chargebacks, or lowers those one or two refunds by 50% or what have you. I mean, it's money well spent. And yeah, the idea of the call center too is just to make sure it's paying for itself. You don't want to add extra costs. I totally get that, having been on the advertiser side, but there's a lot of positives that can come out of the call center as well. So
I'm sure this depends a bit on product type and all that. But do you find that there's like, how many sales agents do you need on like a daily sales ratio, if that makes sense? I don't know if there's a better metric to look at, but is there like
how do you mean?
Like are you talking like revenue to individuals kind of thing?
I guess, yeah. If I've got 100 customers coming in a day, like how many they call people, phone people should I have answering, dialing, call people? Like, yeah.
It depends. Again, like if you have if the pricing's up front and everybody knows what they're buying and people are generally happy with what they purchased, you might only need a couple. But then you also get it depends. I mean, the other thing too is like if subscriptions and things like that. I mean, those are obviously going to generate a bit more calls as well. So it just really depends on the funnel. And if anybody has any questions about that kind of stuff, I'd be definitely more than happy to, talk to them personally and kind of give a run through things and help point them in the right direction. I mean, at many levels, we're all in this together, and I'm more than happy to help out with any of that stuff.
I love the Canadian kumbaya. Anytime,
yeah,
yeah, totally. Eh? Yeah.
I guess thing. Go ahead. You're good.
Follow up there. Is like where can people reach out to you if they are interested in chatting with you and getting that tap into your genius there? And then where in Canada are you? Is the second part?
We're just outside of Vancouver in Victoria, British Columbia.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so we're getting some nice weather out here today too. So it's been been happy times lately.
Awesome.
Not sure when it's going to turn, but I'm sure it's coming. But if anybody wants to reach out to you, I just put together a link on the website. It's just LogiCall.live. So LogiCall with 2 L's .live and then /ClickBank. So if anybody wants to go, through their CS, if they want us to do a look over, be more than happy to help. For sure. And, one other thing I should mention too, obviously very important for a call center, is to just make sure, they're reaching those KPIs, reaching the goals that are set out, and that there's some reporting behind it and all that kind of stuff. So,
we'll circle back on that because I definitely want to talk more about the KPIs, what KPIs you should be looking at, where in your opinion they should be. But before that, I want to go back to something that we all love, which isn't just Canadians, but we love them because how can you not, right? Unless you're like, polite people, they piss me off. No, but is sales. So I think one thing, we've talked about, there's saving sales, there's saving a sale that's already made. And we've talked about the upselling. I think that's one of the areas where oftentimes it feels like call centers really fall flat there, like the ability to then sell, but then also still doing it where you're retaining. So we retain and sell. It feels like oftentimes you could do one or the other, but not both. So really curious, you've been able to accomplish that with your reps. You've mentioned multiple times. When it comes to selling, what are some of the key things that, and we don't want you to give us your secret recipe fully here, but if you want to give us maybe some tidbits on some of the things that you guys do to ensure, and strategies that you implement to ensure that you could turn from just a cost saving place to where you actually start producing new sales and additional sales through the upsells, the cross sales, and kind of that process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it goes without saying that, you could do outbound sales, and that on its own kind of speaks for itself. But when an inbound call comes in and somebody's got some questions about a product, how do you take them from like a 3-bottle package to a 6-bottle package in terms of like a supplement or something? Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just really kind of finding out what the interest was of the caller. What makes them tick? What's the reason they were looking at this in the first place? And just kind of really driving home on some of those points of, the buying signs, if you will. But most importantly, like anybody can really do that. The most important thing from a call center point of view is just finding the agents that can do that is one thing. And then the next thing is just keeping that consistency with the agents. So it's happening on, all the calls that come in. It's not just like a hit and miss. Oh, this guy might do it. This guy might not. I'm not going to pitch it to him. But like just keeping that consistency going with the agents and building that average cart value, getting that average cart value up. That's the name of the game. Our guys are really motivated to do that. And again, a lot of that comes from the call center, just in terms of how are the agents incentivized. Things along that line are super, I find are super beneficial.
Yeah,
for sure.
no, for sure. Well, and this might be, and again, if you're like, nah, I can't share that. I love a good incentive program. Like, and you say properly incentivized. And I think this is actually something where a lot of entrepreneurs really struggle, whether they're hiring biz dev staff or an affiliate manager, or when you get to employees, because oftentimes an entrepreneur, I know what motivates me, right? Whatever it is, like I started this business with some motivation. Now I want to motivate other people with very specific behaviors. And call centers could be a real tough one, because oftentimes the people that you want to, like, what makes a good call center rep is that they don't want to sell. They want to help. They want to react instead of be proactive. So outside employee selection, how do you structure an incentive program for your reps to get them, along with reinforcement and training, but that kind of gets them to naturally want to increase that AOV, want to increase the bottom line for the customers they're working with?
Yeah, I mean, again, just a lot of it comes down to the like the auditing and the QA process, if you will. I mean, if you get a rep that you see has kind of been strong in the past and maybe a little bit sluggish now, you would obviously pull them aside, kind of show them some example of maybe some of better calls that have been happening. And I mean, we find that, just kind of tiering it works a little bit too. So if they kind of get to a certain point, we would, give them X. If they get to a certain point, they get, stage B or C or what have you. And we would just be able to, kind of sweeten the pot for them a little bit, to get them moving again. It's just human nature, right? People do kind of slip back once in a while. And, it's important to stay on top of it as a call center. And, obviously, like, my cash seems to work the best, like I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I mean, and
spend some money, make some money, right?
We actually what we find works really well with our agents, and we actually give them like a percentage. So we do like a rev share with them in a sense, right? Nice. So if you sell, if you upgrade a 3 to a 6 or what have you, or you manage, if there's a different product on the back end for an upsell and you manage to attach that to the order or what have you, we're gonna give our agents a percentage of that revenue that they added on for that call in most cases. Awesome. Again, it all depends on the campaign and the client we're dealing with and what the policies are and stuff like that. But typically, that's what we'll do, and we find that works pretty good. And then the old-fashioned pizza lunch is always a good extra bonus, or Thai food or something, right? For sure, and just kind of keep that atmosphere positive, sales orientated. We section off all the sales guys, so they're all in one kind of corner, and they always keep each other pumped. It's a cultural thing as well, I would say, within a call center. That's a super important thing, which actually brings me to another point too. Typically, we're more of a boutique, if you will, call center. We're not a 500 agent call center. We usually run between 130, 160, 70 agents. We're selective with who we deal with, you don't want to go and just hire some call center with 500 agents, because they're not going to be a partner in your business. They're just going to be another vendor. They're not going to be paying for themselves. We keep it kind of tight for a reason. If we get some, top-notch guys in that want to join and we're capped out, we'll add more agents for them and stuff. But we just kind of try to keep it more tight that way, I guess you could say.
That's really smart. So with that, with this kind of two-part, because one's just really fast, is do you do outbound phone sales? And so you could answer that really quickly, but then transition to the KPIs. So when you're looking at, essentially, I think one of the big things, hey, customer support's good. I might have it right now. Right now, do I know if it's actually doing what it should for me? What are the metrics that tell me that my customer support is doing what I want? And what are the numbers that tell me that, I might have some work left to do. So kind of the two-parter. But yeah, first, just if you do phone sales is yes or no, and then go into that KPI question.
Absolutely. Yes, we do definitely do phone sales for sure. And
sorry, in outbound phone sales.
Yeah, outbound. Yeah. We do.
Awesome.
We do outbounds as well for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always opportunity there on the outbound. Some funnels convert really, really well on the outbounds for us. So, it's pretty impressive actually sometimes, and then you get other funnels that just, they're not quite as good. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's all the marketing, what these customers are coming in from, right? So, it gives it a little extra push. And then in terms of the KPIs, Kyle, obviously we're looking at things like queue times, we're looking at things like average talk time, things like that. As well, we're tracking trends. We're able to track trends of the calls, like if there's a shipping issue or something like that. We actually have a platform you can log into, check it out, and say, hey, okay, there's seems to be an awful lot of calls of delayed shipments here. You can open it up, explore what happened on the call, what the reason for the call was, what happened on the call, and what the outcome was. And just kind of click it over. Okay, this is a fulfillment issue. But ideally, anything like that happens, you would, probably hear from me or somebody else about that. But it's all there for you to see. The other thing too is just obviously your refund metrics. We want to make sure that your campaigns are profitable. How our agents are performing on an agent by agent basis. We do track all of our agent KPIs, such as how many calls they've taken for you, how long they're spending on the phone. What's their cancellation/refund rates like, what their sales levels are like. And we've got that all kind of dialed down to the agent level, which is definitely something, good for a call center to have. I would say that's probably, the generic group of it. But each campaign is different, right? Certain advertisers might want to track and see certain different things. Another obviously good one is just to see how many calls are actually getting through to your call center a day versus abandons, right? So you want to make sure that you're not getting those abandons, because those usually will turn into, either a chargeback or something along those lines. So just
like a service, so essentially like a service level, like how often are people getting like responses within a very short period of time getting a rep?
Yeah, well, if they're calling in, are they getting through? They're not waiting 5 minutes on the line. We want to keep that in kind of the 40-second or lower kind of range.
Gotcha. Okay.
You will get people that just wait for 10 seconds and hang up, and there's nothing you can do about them. But those ones that you can do something about, you want to make sure they're getting answered, obviously, just to avoid any further disputes or anything like that, or them just calling their credit card company or what have you.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I want to throw a quick theoretical situation at you, and then you could spit out, hopefully off the top of your head, perfect numbers that I'll hold you totally accountable to. I think one thing it makes sense. I could see those KPIs, but I'm definitely a person that loves to have like the concrete number to visualize. So I want you to envision that Thomas and I happen to be owning a supplement company. We're selling supplements. It's called Beard Supplements. They put beard all over your face. Wolfman supplements, right? Yeah. So anyway, we're a supplement company. We have a customer service team right now. We're not sure if it's good or bad. We don't really know, but we're selling, standard 136. We're kind of a standard direct response supplement seller. We are in the low 8-figure range on an annual basis, and we currently are working with another outside call center agency. But again, we don't really know if they're doing what they're supposed to. We just know that we're paying them, and that's about as far as we've gotten. So if I came to you and I just asked, like, "Hey, Mitch, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, is this good or bad? Like, can you tell me what are the numbers I should be looking at that say that it's good?" And what would they be specifically?
Yeah, well, that would kind of be the first problem there, is if you just don't know if it's doing good or bad for you.
I didn't say I was a good entrepreneur. I just fell into this bearded success. But
hey, and I've been there too.
That's uncommon, right? Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't know my first call center was bad until I started digging into things. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what set me on this path. There was just no transparency into anything, and it was like,
okay. So that's a sign. The fact that they're not telling you. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I mean, you definitely want to make sure that I guess I would look at, obviously things like queue times, answer rates, abandon rates, things like that, just to give you a baseline of like, hey, okay, how many my calls are coming in? Are they being answered? They're being answered. Okay, great. Now what's happening with those calls? Maybe
What would
start.
be an acceptable threshold for that? So if I like, because abandons have to be inevitable at some point. For somebody
Totally.
has to, like
Yeah,
maybe 10 seconds is enough. Maybe a dog did something really cool when they're about to call and they hung up. Like
totally. Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, that there are some of them that you just can't avoid. They hear the greeting, they're like, they hang up, baby screaming, whatever it might be, right? But yeah, you'd probably want to look at the ones that have been in the queue for 20, 30 seconds and just kind of see the ones over that. Are they being answered or are they still abandoning? Um, I would say, yeah, that would be a good kind of starting point. If you're seeing a bunch over that 20, 30-second mark being abandoned, then you definitely know there's probably a staffing issue, too long of queue times, which obviously you want to look at your queue times as well. So in a perfect world, say those things are great. Your queue times are great. Your abandons are low. Say, you're a bit over a 92% answer rate or something, right? Like that's what I would say to answer your question is probably about, that 90, anything 90% plus would probably be acceptable. You're going to have 10% of people that, yeah, their phone died or whatever, right? But then from those people, what I would do is probably go into the recordings and just maybe if you wanted to audit the recordings, see what's happening on these calls, things like that. Yeah, and then you can kind of get a good idea of what's happening, on your calls, essentially. And then you can see from there, are they just pushing a refund button? Like you could get a chimpanzee to do that essentially, right? Are they building value? Are they supporting the vision of your business? Are they, basically, doing what you would do on the phone for your customers in a sense, right?
gotcha.
Well, at the same time, trying to protect that bottom line because yeah, things aren't cheap these days. So
Yeah.
you don't want to be giving away money, but you want to definitely be, kind of being able to save those sales while the customer gets off the phone and is happy with what happened on the call. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
is the way I would look at
Gotcha.
it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So essentially, when you're looking at it, it's like one, your service levels or answer rate needs to be better than Thomas's math scores back in high school. So,
Yeah.
That's not going to be hard though. Yeah.
but if you're in Thomas range for your math scores on customer, woof, um, and the other side is go listen and see. Now, if you can't get access to those calls, that's probably a pretty bad sign for the calls, the customer support team
Yeah,
you're working
for
with.
sure. And recordings can be a bit of a pain too. I mean, nobody wants to sit there and go through 100 recordings. It takes a lot of time. Each call is what, 4 to 7 minutes or whatever. It's a lot of time to listen to those calls. And there's a lot of like mundane stuff on the calls, like verifying the customer and all that stuff. So, that would be actually another thing that I would say is that you probably want a call center that, has the metrics and the ability to look into this stuff without having to listen to 100 recordings. But it's always good to, pop a few on. That is something we do have too. It would probably be a whole other episode to give you a walkthrough of the reporting and some of the features that, ourselves and one of our partners have developed. It's pretty interesting stuff. But it pretty much allows you to just kind of go in, see the call, what was the reason for the call, what happened on the call, what the outcome of the call was. And then there's a little recording button there. You can play it if you so feel like it, but you actually have like the gist of, the trend of the call, so to speak.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely you'd probably want to check out the recordings, just see how the calls are being handled, things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, these people are representing your product and your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
No, it's huge, right? And we know that like eventually customer support does become the voice of the company, whether you want them to or not. Like they might be the only voice that customer ever hears from your company. So
totally.
they do become the voice of your company. So it makes sense to give it a listen and tell. Now, I know like I said, we could probably spend a lot more time breaking it down. And like, I'm now going through my call center days and thinking specific questions. I'm like, what kind of phones do you have? Like, do you guys use edit pads? And anyway, so we won't go into all that stuff and bore the hell out of people because they want to find customer service that works, but know that they don't have to do it because they probably don't love it, right? It's a calling for some and a curse for others,
It's a
which is
whole other,
why getting the right one makes a lot of sense. So what were you gonna
totally,
say there, Mitch?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole other business within a business. I mean, you
Yeah.
need operations guys, supervisors, managers, TLs, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, and what I say to a lot of my clients is like, we're here to be your partner in this. We're here on the front lines of your business. We're in communication with you all the time. And our job is to, not only find the problems, but come up with solutions as well. And that's definitely a big thing you want to see from the call center side. It's just like not only bringing you problems, but also coming up with the solutions. And that's, a key piece to the puzzle.
Awesome.
And what I always say to them is like, we want you to focus on what you're good at. And that's, designing funnels, getting sales, finding affiliates, all that kind of stuff. Well, we'll focus on what we're good at. And that's, taking your calls, retaining your customers, and providing extra, sales for your business. And that's really in a nutshell what it should all be about. Because, if you're out there managing a call center, managing your call center staff, trying to get affiliates, like there's a lot of moving pieces to this business. It's like you're, at the end of the day, sometimes it's like your head's been in a vice. You know what I mean? Like, I think anyone could relate to that, right? That's been in the space for long enough. So, and that's really the name of the game for us. That's where we're coming from as a call center, essentially.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, man. Yeah, I could tell you, yes, call centers could feel like a head in a vice. They also can be a center for some of the weirdest stories. And at cocktail parties, I get to flex plenty of them out there. So I think even recently there was a team builder. I alluded to them, and it was definitely a gasp in the room. So, I think one of the things, just to circle back, you mentioned before, I think like so much of this is so dependent on the offer and the individual in terms of, okay, here's what metrics you should be looking at. Here's what's telling you it's good, it's bad. Here's the areas of weakness, so on and so forth. It's complex. Customer service is not as simple as just picking up a phone and saying hello. It's a lot more, like you'd mentioned, especially when you bring in the phone. So, I think for anyone out there that's listening right now, if you don't have some form of customer support, beyond just email, you're definitely missing out, and you're really putting yourself in a situation where you're just not making as much money as you possibly could. And it sounds like from you saying, Mitch, regardless of what level you're at, you really want to start doing it. If you're at 10 sales a day, pretty consistently, you should have some amount of phone sales, not a voicemail that drives people to email, but actual customer, like on the phone reps and support. I think that's really, really amazing and powerful. Yeah. That being said, if you're not sure if you have it and you're not sure if it's working, or you want to know that it is, you think it is, but you're not sure, go into the show notes, go to the link that Mitch put in there. And for nothing except for your time, you could at least have the peace of mind at the end of the day that you made the right decision for something that you might not be sure about. And if there's opportunities, he'll be able to let you know where those opportunities are, and you have an opportunity to go and get them fixed. And I said opportunity too many times, but that's because this is such a good opportunity. It can't be said just once. We might get 5, 4, maybe a couple other opportunities we just throw in there. But no, I think that's really, really huge. And talking through this, guys, like knowing that you have a partner, and I really love one of the things you said too, is we want you to do what you do best. And one of the reasons that I like talking and working with you, Mitch, and you work with several of our big clients as well, we believe in the exact same thing. Our business is predicated on getting out of the way of amazing marketers, amazing entrepreneurs that know what they need to do, and they just need to get things out of the way so they could do just that. And that's what we build our business around. It's what you built your business around. And I think, if you're taking advantage of ClickBank, you should be taking advantage of at least at the bare minimum what Mitch is offering, and that free consult with LogiCall. Sure. So, but no, really appreciate the time. Thomas, any other questions or anything you want to ask Mitch while we have him?
I don't want to drag this on too much longer for you, Mitch, but I was curious what's like the biggest forehead to keyboard, palm to forehead, whatever you want to do it, face palm, whatever it is that you see clients doing in good faith that you wish they would stop doing.
That's a great
that's a really good question. There's a few things, and again, you have some offers. It really depends on the advertiser and the offer, but I mean, I guess having the customer understand what it is they just purchased and how much they're paying is definitely a good thing. We have come across some advertisers, and not on ClickBank or anything like that, where it's just the customer doesn't really understand what it is they just purchased. They're a little confused with the pricing and what have you. It just leads to bad sentiment. We can handle those calls. We're more than equipped to deal with it. But it's not, from a business point of view, it's just not the smartest move. I think you guys don't really have much to worry about there. I know anybody that runs with you guys is pretty good with that stuff, so that's good.
Yeah, it's one of the things our compliance team.
I've seen the flip side, and I've seen the flip side, and it can get a little messy. It can get a little
yeah. Yeah, that's no fun. So don't lie. There you go. Just try not to. Try not to.
Yeah,
good
believe in your
advice.
product and go about it the right way, and good things will happen.
Again, we agree a lot with that. So of the same mind. So that's awesome. Well, again, guys, I really appreciate your time, Mitch. And I really encourage anybody, if you're using customer support right now, get the free audit, because again, we know there's a lot of people who do a great job. There's a lot of people that, even if they're trying to do a good job, there might be gaps, right? You're never in a bad spot in your business if you're filling in the gaps to make sure that you have the tight ship that is making all the money that it can. So you're going to be a great guy to help them out with that. So with that, we hope you enjoy the rest of the time in Vancouver. By the way, I should be there next week. So maybe we'll have to try and meet up if I have some time in one of the evenings. But until then, what do we tell the people, Thomas?
Happy scaling.
Happy scaling. Great. And rate, review, subscribe. Also, I forgot to mention before we do have a new inbox. So if you want to email us because you say, Kyle, shut up, or you want feedback, or you want to say nice things, or whatever you want to say to us, it's affiliated. So affiliate with the D at clickbank.com. Please send us what else you hear, your burning questions, your burning critiques, whatever they might be. Just get them out, put them in the inbox, and we will read them. And yes, we are excited to hear what you have to say, because we do dictate our show based on that. So again, thank you for the time. Thomas gave us our lit up happy scaling. And until next time, have a good one.